I've been here since 1989, and I've seen lots of changes over the years. I think one of the fun changes for me is the tour buses. In 1989, we didn't have any tour buses going through the town. Now it's bustling. The convention bought hotels, bought restaurants, bought shopping for all the tourists walking around. And now you get people of any kind of language walking up and down the streets. And I frequently will stop and ask people, can I direct you somewhere?
You'll find tourists, which we didn't have, where I grew up, with cameras and asking questions with their maps out. And you always stop to say, what can I help you? Because that makes the neighborhood.
Throughout the 90s, we saw a dramatic increase in the number of restaurants, in the number of empty lots or vacant buildings that were completely overhauled.
The neighborhood physically has changed a lot because when I was growing up, there were these parking lots where buildings had been torn down, and since then, since the late 70s, all of those parking lots have been built on. Where I learned to ride a bike, there's a big Planned Parenthood building. There's a lot more street life now, a lot more people out on the street.
I don't think there's ever really been a problem in Washington Square West. It lies between Society Hill and Rittenhouse Square. It's been the intermediate area. It's always been the place where a lot of working class young people could live, and could live perhaps a little less expensively than the other areas.
It has always been moderately priced and very, very convenient to all the office buildings and transportation, especially the hospitals.
We've probably made our biggest name in the neighborhood recently in the last 25 or 30 years with our commitment to be open.
It's always been a place that has had diversity. I am a gay man, and as a gay man, maybe 20 or 30 years ago, it wasn't public and you didn't discuss it, but there were lots of gay people living in the neighborhood. The neighborhood did become the focus for the gayborhood, as it's called. It is the place where most of the gay bars located, and at one time I owned 3 of the gay bars that were in the neighborhood.
I think Washington Square West is especially interesting because of a lot of the firsts that happened in the neighborhood. First, both for the country, the city, the state, and maybe the world. Washington Square West had the first African-American church in the city of Philadelphia, probably in the country. It was on the 300 block of South Quinn Street. We now know it as the Mask and Wig Club.
St. Luke's is actually one of the first buildings to go up in the neighborhood. The community started to be built in the late 1830s. And it was the custom at that point, if we could, to set up an Episcopal church pretty much in any new neighborhood in the area.
We have another first in the area of housing, and that's Casa Farnese. It was the first senior subsidized housing in the state of Pennsylvania.
I wanted to be in the antique business, so you go where the antiques are, and that was on Pine Street in Washington Square West. There were totally all antique shops. It started to change in 1976. When it was the bicentennial. So I said, well, I see the handwriting on the wall, and I think I'm going to start edging out. So I sold the business. And that's the change on Pine Street. It took several years.
Quinn Street is almost exactly the same as it was. All the old houses are there. The trees are bigger. That's like the thing you notice when I look at old photographs. The character of the little streets like Quinn Street's really the same as it was.
The neighborhood feels like there's continuity as much as there is change. I stress that with the church's history. I feel like there's always continuity in most things. There's like a personality to the church, and there's a personality to this neighborhood.